Good morning. We are at one of the older Scottish Rite cathedrals. This is the Masonic Temple in Tucson, and we walk by here every day. And the other day I was just listening to a podcast about secret societies and how they ruled the world for so many years, right? And I believe we're getting to a time frame where there's no more secret. Well, there's less and less secrets. I just feel there's so much data, nobody's really understanding the secrets are out there if you want to go and see them, right? And I think, Harley questions everything. So we've got to move into a world where we question things more, get our own system for, critical thinking again. That's literally what this channel's about. And if you have your own ability to talk, interact with human beings on this planet, and you can stay positive in your mindset when you ask questions and come to your conclusions, nobody can mess with you. That's what we're saying here at the channel. And not that people are messing with you or whatever, but I digress. Today, asking the question of, we've got to understand we live in a big world, and it's not just around our own little community that we got to kind of start paying attention to, right? And what I haven't seen very much of is the story of the collapse of Russia and how, they're out of gas in Russia, right? And I don't know if everybody knows, but Russia's a major producer of oil to the rest of the world too, right? And so when you start thinking about oil, in this situation we're in, I feel like it's most the best way to explain it that I've heard is we have literally a system, and think of it like an oil bathtub, okay? And the world needs X amount of oil coming out of that bathtub to just make the world go round, right? Like FedEx packages, you name it, okay? And that's just a knowable number, right? Knowable, meaning we know what that number has been and is, right? And so what happens when you start cutting off supply, cost goes up, right? Price that somebody's going to pay for whatever's left goes up. Well, we just had a major disruption, and obviously, and everybody knows, in Iran. But what happens? I don't have an answer. I have a good question here. And I say, what happens when the world bathtub of oil is not supplied by Russia anymore? Because it's kind of stopping. They're not able to process. They're taking out, the Ukraine's taking out their oil infrastructure. And there's a lot of countries that rely on oil from Russia, right? That's just kind of, there's a few spots in the world where you can get the most of it, and Russia is one of them. But strategically, Ukraine is handing them their ass. What's also happening, oil is part one. Part two, when you start to look at societies and how they collapse, it's not rocket science, right? It's not how the thing all blew up like a rocket. No, this happens slowly over time, right? And what happens is, somewhere along the lines, somebody runs out of money to make war, right? That's also how war is lost, kind of always how war is lost, right? Aside from invasions and stuff, right? But they run out of money to make war, right? And that's what's happening in Russia, because they've used everything they can to make and wage war. Come on, buddy. For example, what have they done to make and wage war? Let's talk about their banking system. That's what's happening right now. Who wants a ruble outside of Russia? Good question, right? But Russians need rubles to eat, right? To do the Russian economy. Well, the Russian economy is tidbits of what it was even a year ago, right? I was watching a video on a company that makes high-end shoes and ski boots and skates, and it's for professionals, right? It's not, it's not just cheap stuff. And they had 400 employees at one point, and then 200, and now they're down to 75. And they're straight up saying, you need to buy our stuff because we don't know how long we're going to be in business. And so business after business like that, going out of business. And a couple of the cracks in the system that I was listening to a video today is how, basically, if you're going to join the Russian military, they have incentives. They have straight up bribe people. They give people all of these death benefits and all that kind of stuff. But who pays for that? It's actually not the federal government. Putin's making the local government. So if you came from Tucson would pay that out of their budget. So he's collapsing the local budgets with his war machine prior to everybody seeing the federal money, right? What's happening now is he's paying up. So everybody has been going into the debt the last 4 years to just live because everything's getting more and more expensive. Printing more and more money. That's part B of any kind of system collapse is they start printing money, right? Look what happened in Germany. A lot of people don't know what happened in Germany, but I digress. We're talking about Russia today. What's happening, you can go look at and spend a few moments educating yourself, right? Because it's happening. It's an actual textbook. Come on, buddy. A textbook case of how something collapses is happening in front of our eyes in Russia right now. And doesn't matter who you watch, the Russian propaganda is actually stopping too, right? So what's happened with the banks is they've said you can't pull out more than $250 a day from your ATM if you live in Moscow. But Moscow is a huge online. They don't have. It's a cashless kind of place because they don't want to get robbed, right? But they shut down the internet so they can't play with cash. You see what I'm saying? In one of the biggest capitals in the world, right? So, what else did they do? They said, well, if you have a lot of debt, you racked up debt, join the military and we'll pay off all your debt. But the government's so broke, who's paying off the debt? It's not like Fannie Mae or the U.S. government makes that local bank or whoever he owed those loans to, right again? The government just says, nope, you will wipe out his debt. Or moreover, you can't sue him for that money, is how they're doing it. So they're squeezing every dollar, actually every ruble, out of any crazy way they can fleece the Russian people right now is what's happening. It's the more you listen to it, the more of those examples, it's like, holy crap, because they're trying not to print more money. You keep printing money, keep printing rubles, we'll say. And what happened in Germany is they had to use wheelbarrows to pay for bread because it took that much paper money, right? Come on, buddy. Let's go. That's just, a friend of mine asked me about that. I'm like, that's just actually what happened, right? That's just what happened. Oh, yeah, that's what happens when your country goes bankrupt. And generally it's because of war, right? It's because you overextended yourself and your money, right? So we are in the middle of a textbook collapse of the Russian system right now. And I'm not trying, I want to have compassion for them. I want to have compassion for the people of the earth in general. But I also want to say you reap what you sow, right? Like, I'm so tired of people not understanding and being on a moral high ground and having their, thoughts, opinions, beliefs, and all of a sudden not understanding that you reap what you sow, right? So when you go to war and you run out of money, it's not good, right? Period. I'm not going to, we'll leave that one for the next one. But here's a question I'm going to leave you with. And I need to call I don't know anybody that's an oil person. I know a lot of different people into a lot of different things, but not oil. And I'm just wondering, what happens when the oil, that's the Russian oil to the world supply, stops because of their incompetence that they have right now. And their oil, they can't produce, right? It's going to take time. It's going to take time. And it's going to take the Ukraine stop blowing their stuff up too, and time. So anyway, leave you with that one. What happens to our gas, even if we fix all the other problems in the world, because that one's not going to end without it blowing all up, it seems, because Putin just won't let it happen, right? But I think it's really interesting, to be honest with you. I've been really getting into listening to boots on the ground folks in Ukraine, and there's a lot of them in Russia. But you've gone from days to where, they're blowing up the machinery for the oil system in Russia, and now they're showing they can't hide it anymore. They're showing people pulling up to the gas station and it's all zeros. And they have a very complex gas system is what I've seen. They have every kind of like gas you want at every pump because they're a gas producer. So anyway, very, very, we are here watching this, and that's one thing we're just going to have to embrace. But if we don't go and look at the books again, our history books, our textbooks, the books that we agreed prior to 2016, that's how this world works and we want it to work that way, how to win friends and influence people, how to communicate, how to negotiate, not just how to bullshit me. And we need to understand the difference between a good book and a bad book. We need to understand clearly the difference between, we'll just say, a successful strategy that we all agreed on for 100 years and shown through thousands of years to work, and what somebody's selling us recently saying they know, right? I digress a little bit, but it's a new world. You're gonna have to learn. You're gonna have to pick up some new tips and tricks about how you get information. I don't want to sugarcoat it. I want to I want us to start to have some credibility with our words, right? So next video will be on credibility, because I think that's also one we can kind of all agree on, right? But Harley questions everything right now because it doesn't seem to. I know a lot of these people have read the same books that I and you have read, but they forgot them. They forgot them since 2016 is all I'll say too. They maybe forgot them in the pandemic, but I don't see anybody using concepts and principles out of things that we all know, how our society wants to work, how math works, how business works, how science works. We're just starting to throw out those books and say we know better than the books that we read growing up and how we got here, right? So just kind of pointing out things, a lot of the stuff I've been pointing out. I mean, any 101 collapse of history book will show you exactly, how it all works. Doesn't matter. And it doesn't just happen overnight. Generally also happens because they ran out of money for war, right? So this is just, I don't want to sugarcoat anything, but get curious. Say, all right, how do we make it through our own struggles that are coming too? I promise you. And but we'll get through it. This is one of my favorite areas I'll leave you with. We're gonna go take a swim in the fountain. Love you all. Have a great day.